Sometimes love doesn't die. It just waits. It waits through years of silence, through the wrong choices, through the darkness. It waits until a little girl in blood-stained pajamas runs through hospital doors at midnight, screaming for a man who never forgot her mother. This is a story about the kind of love that doesn't give up even when it should. About the kind of promise that moves mountains, and about the moment when waiting finally, desperately, ends. If you believe in second chances, in love that refuses to die, and in the power of keeping promises, subscribe to this channel and join. Hit that notification bell, because stories like this remind us why we never stop fighting for the people we love. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, an 8-year-old girl in blood-stained pajamas ran through the automatic doors of Sutton Medical Center, the most prestigious hospital in the state, and screamed 4 words that would change everything. "I need Blake Sutton!" Security moved to intercept her, but she was wild with terror, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "He owns this hospital. He promised. My mama's dying." The head of security, Victor Kane, reached for his radio, but the little girl's next words stopped him cold. "There's so much blood. Daddy hurt her and she won't wake up, and I walked here, and he promised he'd save her." Victor grabbed his phone. Somewhere 12 floors above, in a glass-walled boardroom where men in $1,000 suits were discussing quarterly profits, Blake Sutton's phone rang. "Sir, we have a situation. A child in the lobby. Says her name is Callista Freeman. She's asking for you. Victor's voice dropped. "Sir, she's covered in what appears to be blood, and she's saying someone hurt her mother." The phone clattered to the conference table. Blake Sutton, billionaire, owner of 12 hospitals across 6 states, the man Forbes called the youngest titan in healthcare, ran. He didn't wait for the elevator. He took the stairs, his $2,000 shoes pounding against concrete, his heart in his throat, because he knew exactly who Callista Freeman was. And he knew exactly who her mother was. Blake burst through the stairwell door into the lobby, chest heaving, tie askew, and saw her. Callista Freeman. 8 years old, tiny, with her mother's gentle brown eyes and her mother's beautiful dark curls, now tangled and wild. Her Disney princess pajamas were splattered with crimson. Her bare feet were bleeding from the walk. Her face was streaked with tears. She saw him and ran. Blake dropped to his knees just as she crashed into him, her small arms wrapping around his neck with desperate strength. "You promised," she sobbed into his shoulder. "You promised you'd keep Mama safe. You promised." Blake's arms closed around her, and his eyes burned with tears he hadn't shed in 16 years. "Where's your mama, sweetheart? Where is she?" "Home, kitchen floor, so much blood." "I called 911, but then I ran because you promised, and Daddy said she fell, but he's lying and she won't wake up." Blake pulled back, cupped her tear-stained face in his hands. "Listen to me, Callista. Listen, I'm going to keep my promise, right now, you understand? I'm going to save your mama." He looked up at Victor. "Get my car. Now. Call Detective Rachel Ortiz. Tell her Blake Sutton has information on an attempted murder in progress. Send the address to my phone." He scooped Callista into his arms and stood. "And call the surgical team. Tell them to prep OR1. Whatever's coming in, I'm operating." Victor was already moving. "Sir, should we notify Mr. Freeman? If Dominic Freeman comes within 100 yards of this hospital," Blake's voice was ice over steel, "you stop him. I don't care if you have to arrest him yourself. He doesn't get near her, ever again." Blake's Aston Martin tore through red lights. Callista buckled in the passenger seat, still crying. "How far did you walk, honey?" Blake asked, forcing his voice to stay calm while his hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. "I don't know, a really long way. My feet hurt." 2.3 miles. Blake had checked the GPS. An 8-year-old girl had walked 2 miles through the dark streets at midnight to find him. "You were so brave, Callista, so incredibly brave." "I was scared." Her voice was tiny. "Brave people are always scared. They just do it anyway." He looked at her. "Your mama is going to be so proud of you." "What if she dies?" Blake's throat closed. "She won't." "I won't let her. You promise?" And there it was, the question that would haunt him forever if he failed. "I promise." Blake's hands gripped the steering wheel, but his mind was racing backward, to a week ago, to the moment that had shattered and rebuilt him all at once. Blake Sutton stood at the nurse's station on the 3rd floor of Sutton Medical Center, reviewing patient charts. It was a routine Tuesday afternoon. He'd just finished consulting on a complex abdominal surgery. His mind was on the quarterly board meeting scheduled for 4 o'clock. Dr. Sutton? The intake nurse Maria approached with a tablet. We have a patient in exam room 7. Second-degree burn on her left hand. She says it was a cooking accident, but... Maria's expression darkened. There are other marks, older bruises on her arms. I think you should see her. Blake nodded, taking the chart. His eyes scanned the name. Patient, Nicole Freeman, 34, female. The tablet slipped from his hands. It clattered to the floor, screen cracking, but Blake didn't notice. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything but stare at that name, Nicole. Dr. Sutton? Are you okay? Maria bent to retrieve the tablet. Blake's voice came out strangled. Did you say Freeman? Yes, Nicole Freeman. Is something wrong? Everything was wrong. Everything was impossible. Because Nicole Tyler, no, Freeman now, she'd gotten married, was supposed to be living somewhere far away, living a perfect life, having forgotten all about the boy who'd loved her too much in high school. She wasn't supposed to be here in his hospital. Hurt. Sir? Blake forced himself to move. I'll take this case. Exam room 7? Yes, sir. She has her daughter with her. Daughter. Nicole had a daughter. Blake's legs felt like lead as he walked down the corridor. Each step was a war between desperate hope and soul-deep dread. 16 years. It had been 16 years since graduation night, since she gently, kindly, devastatingly told him she didn't feel the same way. He'd seen her exactly once since then, at a distance, at a medical conference 5 years ago. She'd been across a crowded lobby, and he'd hidden like a coward rather than face her. But now there was no hiding. Blake stopped outside exam room 7. His hand was shaking as he reached for the door handle. He took 1 breath, 2. Then pushed it open, and there she was, Nicole Tyler, Freeman, sitting on the examination table, cradling her left hand. She'd changed, and yet she hadn't. Her hair was still those gorgeous natural curls, maybe longer now, pulled back in a loose twist. Her skin still that beautiful rich brown that had made teenage Blake write terrible poetry comparing her to warm earth and dark honey. She was thinner than he remembered, too thin, and there were shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and carried burdens. But God, she was still the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She looked up when the door opened. Their eyes met, and the world stopped. Blake watched recognition hit her like a physical blow. Her eyes, those deep brown eyes he'd dreamed about for 16 years, went wide. Her lips parted in shock. The hand she'd been cradling dropped to her lap, forgotten. Blake? His name came out as barely a whisper. He couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. All he could do was stand there, drinking in the sight of her, his heart hammering so hard he was certain she could hear it. Nicole. Her name felt like coming home and falling off a cliff at the same time. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. 16 years of silence, of distance, of what-ifs and might-have-beens hung between them like a living thing. Then Nicole's eyes filled with tears. I can't, her voice broke. This can't be real. Blake finally found his voice, though it was rougher than he'd ever heard it. I'm real, He trailed off, because what could he possibly say? I never got over you. I never stopped loving you. I've compared every woman I've ever met to you, and they all fell short. A small voice cut through the tension. Mama, who's that? Blake's gaze shifted to the little girl sitting in the corner chair. He'd been so focused on Nicole, he hadn't even registered her presence. She was maybe 8 or 9, with olive-toned skin, dark curls similar to her mother's pulled into 2 puffs, and eyes that held far too much wariness for a child. This is... Nicole's voice shook. This is Dr. Sutton, baby. We knew each other a long time ago. Hi, the girl said quietly, studying Blake with the kind of careful observation that made his chest ache. This was a child who'd learned to read danger in adults. Blake forced himself into professional mode, or tried to. Hi there, what's your name? Callista. That's a beautiful name. Blake turned back to Nicole, and the professional mask cracked immediately. Nicole, I need to examine your hand. May I? She nodded, extending her left hand with visible reluctance. Blake moved closer, and the scent of her, something floral and warm that was achingly familiar, nearly undid him. He took her hand in his, and the contact sent electricity racing up his arm. Her breath hitched. Their eyes met again, and in that moment, Blake saw everything. She felt it too. This pull, this impossible, terrible, beautiful pull that hadn't diminished even slightly in 16 years. "Tell me what happened," he said softly, examining the burn. It was 2nd degree, angry and blistered across her palm. But it was the other marks that made his blood run cold. The yellowing bruises on her forearms, the fading fingerprints on her wrist. "I was cooking," Nicole said. The lie smooth and practiced. The pan handle was hot. "I grabbed it without thinking." Blake's jaw clenched. "Nicole, that's what happened." Her voice was firm, but her eyes were pleading. "Don't ask, don't push, don't make me say it out loud." But Blake had spent 10 years as a trauma surgeon. He knew the signs, he knew what those finger-shaped bruises meant. And these? He gently touched the marks on her forearm. Nicole pulled her hand back. "I bruise easily." "It's nothing." "Mama," Callista started to say something, but Nicole cut her off with a sharp look. "It's nothing, baby." The little girl fell silent, and Blake's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. "I need to clean and dress this burn," Blake said, his voice carefully neutral even as everything inside him was screaming. "It's going to hurt, I'm sorry." "I'm used to pain," Nicole said quietly. Those 4 words destroyed him. As Blake worked, cleaning the wound, applying antibacterial ointment, wrapping her hand in sterile gauze, the silence between them was deafening. There was so much to say. 16 years of questions, of wondering, of regret. "How have you been?" Nicole finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How had he been? Blake almost laughed. "Good, busy. I took over my father's hospital 10 years ago. Expanded it. We're up to 12 locations now." 12 hospitals? Nicole's eyes widened. "Blake, that's incredible." "It kept me busy. It kept me from thinking about you every waking moment." He thought to himself, "What about you? What have you been doing?" "I got married." She said it flatly, without joy. 7 years ago, I was in nursing school. "We have Callista." She looked at her daughter with such fierce love it made Blake's chest ache. "She's the best thing I've ever done." "You got married." The words echoed in Blake's mind like a death knell. Of course she did. She'd moved on, built a life, while he'd been pathetically pining for a woman who'd never wanted him. But then why was she here, with burns and bruises, looking at him with eyes that held so much pain? "Are you happy?" The question escaped before Blake could stop it. Nicole's face crumbled for just a second before she rebuilt the mask. "I have Callista. She makes everything worth it." That wasn't an answer, that was a deflection. Blake finished wrapping her hand. "You need to keep this clean and dry. Change the dressing daily. If you see any signs of infection, redness, swelling, fever, come back immediately. Or go to any ER." "Thank you," Nicole said. "Nicole, I should go. My husband will be wondering where I am." The way she said husband, with a thread of fear woven through it, made Blake want to break something. "Wait." Blake pulled out one of his business cards, grabbed a pen, and wrote his personal cell number on the back. "If you ever need anything at all, you call me day or night. I mean it, Nicole." She stared at the card like it might burn her worse than the pan had. "Blake, I can't." "Please." His voice cracked. "I know I don't have the right to ask. I know it's been 16 years and you've moved on and you probably don't want to hear this, but..." He took a shaky breath. "I never stopped caring about you, and seeing you hurt like this is killing me. So please, just take the card, even if you never use it. Please." Nicole's hand trembled as she took the card. Their fingers brushed, and the contact sent a jolt through both of them. "I have to go," she whispered, tears streaming down her face now. She stood, grabbing Callista's hand. The little girl looked up at Blake with those 2 old eyes. "You're a good doctor," Callista said suddenly. "You didn't hurt Mama as much as the other doctors did." Other doctors, so this wasn't the first time. Blake's fists clenched at his sides. "Thank you, sweetheart," he managed. As they walked toward the door, Blake couldn't stop himself. "Nicole." She turned back, and the look on her face, longing and regret and desperate, hopeless love, nearly brought him to his knees. "It's good to see you," he said. But what he wanted to say, what he couldn't say, was "I love you. I never stopped loving you. Leave him. Come back to me. Let me save you." "It's good to see you too, Blake." She smiled, but it was the saddest thing he'd ever seen. You look good." "I'm glad." She wasn't glad. She was breaking. He could see it in every line of her body. And then she was gone, taking Callista with her, leaving Blake standing in the empty exam room with his heart in pieces on the sterile floor. He stood there for 10 minutes, maybe more, just staring at the door she'd walked through. Then he pulled out his phone and called Victor Kane. "Victor, I need you to do something for me. I need a full background check. Name, Nicole Freeman, and her husband. I need to know everything." Because Blake Sutton had spent 16 years becoming powerful enough to protect the woman he loved. And even if she didn't want him, even if she'd chosen someone else, he was going to make damn sure she was safe. 3 days later, when Nicole came back to the hospital with Callista in tow, looking more worn and carrying fresh bruises poorly hidden by makeup, Blake had been ready. He'd given Callista origami paper and taught her to make cranes. He'd looked into Nicole's eyes and seen the truth she couldn't say out loud. And he'd made a promise to a little girl. "If your mama ever needs help, real help, you come find me. I promise I'll keep her safe." Blake blinked back to the present, his foot heavy on the accelerator. That first meeting, seeing Nicole again after 16 years, seeing the fear in her eyes, the bruises on her skin, had awakened something primal in him. And now Callista had come to collect on his promise. "I'm coming, Nicole," he thought fiercely. The ambulance was already there when Blake arrived, EMTs loading a stretcher. Blake threw the car into park and ran, flashing his medical credentials. "I'm Dr. Blake Sutton, trauma surgeon, owner of Sutton Medical Center. I'm taking over this patient's care." The lead EMT looked up. "Sir, we're transporting to county. You're transporting to Sutton Medical. I'll be riding with her. That's non-negotiable." He pushed past them to the stretcher, and his world stopped. Nicole, God, Nicole. She was unconscious, face swollen and bruised, blood matting her beautiful natural curls. Eveline already in, her breathing shallow. For a moment, Blake couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Because this was Nicole, his Nicole, the girl who'd held his heart since he was 15 years old, the woman he'd never stopped loving despite 16 years of silence. And someone had done this to her. "Sir?" The EMT's voice cut through. "Do you know her?" Blake's hand found Nicole's, carefully avoiding the IV. His thumb brushed her knuckles, and he leaned close to her ear. "Nicole," he whispered, "it's Blake. I've got you. You're safe now. I'm taking you with me." Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. The EMT was staring. "Sir, are you—" "I'm the man who's going to save her life." Blake looked up and his eyes were hard. "Now let's move." At the surgical waiting room in Sutton Medical Center, Callista sat in a chair far too big for her, wrapped in a hospital blanket, her feet now bandaged. A pediatric nurse named Grace sat with her, offering hot chocolate that Callista hadn't touched. Detective Rachel Ortiz arrived at 1:15 a.m., a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. She sat beside Callista. "Hi, honey. I'm Detective Ortiz. Can you tell me what happened tonight?" Callista's voice was small but steady. "My daddy hurt my mama really bad. He does it a lot, but tonight was worse." She wouldn't wake up. "Where was your daddy when you left?" "He went to work. He said mama fell and he had to work because he has a big case tomorrow." Callista looked at the detective with eyes that had seen too much. "But mama didn't fall. He pushed her and he hit her a lot." Rachel's jaw tightened. "How did you get here, sweetheart?" "I walked. 'Cause Dr. Sutton promised he'd save Mama. He promised me before when we saw him here." Rachel's eyebrows rose. "You've met Dr. Sutton before?" "Mama brought me here last week 'cause she burned her hand. Dr. Sutton was really nice. He looked at Mama like she's very beautiful. And when Mama went to the bathroom, he gave me origami paper and taught me to make a crane." Callista pulled a crumpled paper crane from her pajama pocket. He said to make a wish on it. "So I wished he would save my mama." Rachel had to look away for a moment. And then he said something to me. Callista continued. He said, Callista, if your mama ever needs help, real help, you come find me. No matter what. I promise I'll keep her safe. And he gave me his card. She pulled out a business card now stained with blood. Blake Sutton's private number was written on the back in his own handwriting. Rachel took the card, studying it. Smart girl, keeping this. Dr. Sutton likes my mama, Callista said with the simple certainty of a child. I could tell. Nobody ever looks at mama like that. Even daddy doesn't look at her like that. At the operating room, Blake scrubbed in with shaking hands, something that hadn't happened since his first surgery as a resident. His chief of surgery, Dr. Patricia Hayes, met him at the OR doors. Blake, are you sure about this? If she's personal to you, she's everything to me, Patricia. His voice cracked. And I'm the best trauma surgeon in this hospital. She needs the best. Patricia studied his face, then nodded. Then let's save her. The surgery took 4 hours. Internal bleeding from a ruptured spleen. 3 broken ribs, 1 that had punctured a lung, severe concussion, defensive wounds on her arms where she'd tried to protect herself. Blake worked with a precision born of desperation, his hands steady even as his heart shattered with every injury he repaired. How does someone do this? His surgical resident whispered. How does someone hurt another human being like this? Because he's not human, Blake said quietly, his hands inside Nicole's abdomen, repairing the damage. He's a monster, and when she wakes up, he'll never touch her again. At 5:47 a.m., Blake closed the last incision. She's stable, Patricia announced. Blake stripped off his gloves, walked to the head of the surgical table, and did something he'd never done in an OR before. He leaned down and pressed his lips to Nicole's forehead, gentle as a prayer. Welcome home, Nicole, he whispered. I've been waiting for you. Blake sat beside Nicole's bed, still in his surgical scrubs, holding her hand. He hadn't left her side for an hour and a half. Callista was curled up in the chair next to him, finally sleeping, exhausted. Blake studied Nicole's face, older than he remembered, but still achingly beautiful. 16 years since graduation night. 16 years since she'd broken his heart with the gentlest words. I don't feel that way about you, Blake. I'm sorry. He'd told her it was okay, that they could still be friends, but they'd both known it was a lie. He'd left for college that summer and never looked back, built an empire from nothing, turned his family's single struggling hospital into a healthcare dynasty worth billions. Forbes had called him a genius. Wall Street called him a titan, but every woman he'd dated he'd compared to her. Every potential wife he'd measured against the memory of a girl who'd never wanted him. And none of them ever measured up. I'm pathetic, he whispered to her unconscious form. 16 years, Nicole. I've spent 16 years becoming someone worthy of you, and you don't even know I'm still in love with you. Her fingers twitched in his hand. Blake froze. Nicole's eyelids fluttered once. Nicole? His voice cracked. Nicole, can you hear me? Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused and glazed with pain medication. She stared at the ceiling, then her gaze drifted to him. Recognition flickered. Her lips moved. Blake? His name had never sounded more beautiful. I'm here. He leaned closer, his free hand cupping her face so gently. You're safe, Nicole. You're in my hospital. You're safe. Callista. Panic flared in her eyes. She's right here. Look. Blake shifted so Nicole could see her daughter sleeping in the chair. She's fine. She's a hero. She saved your life. Tears leaked from Nicole's eyes. He hurt me. I know. Blake's thumb brushed her tears away. But he'll never hurt you again. Why? Nicole's voice was barely a whisper. Why are you here? Blake smiled through his own tears. Because 16 years ago, I made myself a promise. If life ever gave me another chance with you, I'd take it. I'd fight for you. I'd be there when you needed me. His voice broke. I just wish you'd needed me sooner. Nicole stared at him and something shifted in her expression. You never. Never got over you? No. Blake's confession was raw, honest, devastating. I made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but every single day I thought about you. Wondered where you were, if you were happy, if you ever thought about me. Every day, Nicole whispered. Blake's breath caught. What? I thought about you every day. Fresh tears fell. About graduation night. About what I said to you. About what my life would have been if I'd said yes instead of no. Nicole, I married a monster, Blake. Her voice shattered. I married a man who hurt me and threatened to take my daughter away from me if I leave. And every time he hit me, I thought about you. About how safe I would have been if I'd just said yes. Blake couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I was so stupid, Nicole sobbed. I was 19 and scared, and I thought love was supposed to be calm and safe and… Stop. Blake leaned his forehead against hers, careful of her injuries. You weren't stupid. You were 19. You had dreams. I was just a kid with too much feeling and not enough sense. He pulled back to look at her. But I'm not a kid anymore, Nicole, and I'm going to keep you safe. You and Callista both, whatever it takes. He'll come for me, she whispered. He always finds me. Blake's smile was dangerous. Let him try. This is my hospital, my city, my empire. And you? His voice dropped to something fierce and tender at once. You're mine to protect now. Whether you want me to or not? Nicole's eyes widened. Blake. I'm in love with you, Nicole Freeman. The words poured out like he'd been holding them in for 16 years, because he had. I've been in love with you since I was 15 years old, and I never stopped. I never moved on. I never married anyone else because they weren't you. And I know the timing is terrible, and you're married, and you're hurt, and I should wait. But I've been waiting for 16 years, and I'm done waiting. So here it is. I love you. I'm going to protect you. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth that yes you never gave me. The room was silent except for the beeping of monitors and Callista's soft breathing. Nicole stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You're insane, she whispered. Probably. It's been 16 years. I'm aware. I'm married to a prosecutor who'll destroy you if you help me. He can try. Blake, you don't understand. He's powerful. He's connected. He'll take Callista from me. Nicole. Blake's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I own this city and I have more money than most small countries. I have lawyers who make other lawyers wet themselves. And I have spent 16 years becoming powerful enough that no one, and I mean no one, can take from me what I love. He leaned closer. And I love you. So Dominic Freeman can bring everything he has, but it won't be enough. Nicole laughed through her tears, a broken, desperate sound. You really are insane. Say yes. What? Say yes, Nicole. The yes you should have said 16 years ago. Say yes to letting me help you. Say yes to letting me protect you. Say yes too. Where he hesitated, then plunged forward because he had nothing left to lose. Say yes to giving us a chance. Nicole looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd held a torch for her for 16 years. At the billionaire who'd just spent 4 hours in surgery saving her life. At the boy she'd turned down who'd become the man who'd kept a promise to her daughter. This is crazy, she whispered. I know. We don't even know each other anymore. Then we'll learn. Blake, I'm broken. I'm so broken. Then I'll help you heal, however long it takes. Callista stirred in the chair, her sleepy voice cutting through the moment. Mama? You're awake! Blake pulled back as Callista scrambled onto the bed, careful but desperate, burying her face in her mother's neck. I was so scared, Callista sobbed. I thought you were going to die. Nicole held her daughter with her good arm, crying into her hair. I'm okay, baby, I'm okay. Dr. Sutton saved you, Callista said fiercely. I told him he had to save you, and he did. He promised. Nicole looked at Blake over her daughter's head, and something passed between them. 16 years of what-ifs and might-have-beens, and finally, a chance. Thank you, she mouthed. Blake smiled. Always. Sometimes it takes 16 years and a tragedy to find your way back to the person you were always meant to be with. Sometimes it takes a little girl's courage to save everyone. If this story is touching your heart, if you believe in love that waits, in promises that are kept, in second chances that can heal everything, please hit that like button, subscribe, consider clicking the super thanks icon to support my channel, and share this with someone who needs to believe in happy endings. Because this story isn't over yet, and what comes next will remind you why we never give up on love. Dominic Freeman arrived at Sutton Medical Center the same morning at 9:47 a.m., wearing his best suit and his best lie. "I'm looking for my wife, Nicole Freeman. I believe she was brought here last night. There was an accident." The receptionist looked at her computer, then at him. "I'm sorry, sir, I don't have a Nicole Freeman in our system." Dominic's smile tightened. "She was brought here by ambulance. Check again." "Sir, I've checked. There's no—" "I'm a prosecutor with the district attorney's office." Dominic leaned in, voice dropping to something threatening. "My wife is in this hospital, and you're going to tell me where she is." "Now." Victor Kane appeared behind him. "Mr. Freeman, I need you to come with me." Dominic spun. "And you are?" "Victor Kane, head of security. We need to talk, in private." They moved to a small conference room. Victor closed the door. "Where is my wife?" Dominic demanded. "Mrs. Freeman is currently under medical care. Her condition is stable. I want to see her." "That's not possible." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "On whose authority?" "Mine," said a voice from the doorway. Blake Sutton walked in, still in surgical scrubs, looking like he hadn't slept, because he hadn't. But his eyes were sharp and hard as he studied the man who'd nearly killed the woman he loved. "Mr. Freeman," Blake said coldly, "I'm Dr. Blake Sutton. I know who you are. Where's my wife?" "In recovery from surgery that I performed. After I spent 4 hours repairing the damage you did to her." Dominic's mask cracked just for a moment. "I don't know what lies Nicole told you, but she didn't tell me anything. She didn't have to." Blake stepped closer. Internal bleeding from a ruptured spleen. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, concussion, defensive wounds all over her arms. "Want me to continue?" "My wife is clumsy. She fell—" "Don't!" Blake's voice could have cut glass. "Don't insult my intelligence. I've been a trauma surgeon for 10 years. I know the difference between a fall and a beating. And your wife didn't fall." Dominic's jaw clenched. "I'm her husband. You can't keep me from her." "Actually, I can. This is my hospital. And as her attending physician, I've determined that visits from you would be detrimental to her recovery." Blake smiled, but it was a predator's smile. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to go back to your life, and you're going to stay away from Nicole and Callista." "Like hell I am." Dominic pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer. I'll have you arrested for unlawful detention." "On what grounds?" "She's a patient receiving medical care. The only person who's breaking the law here is you." Blake nodded to Victor, who placed a folder on the table. "See, I had my security team pull Nicole's medical records from every hospital in the state. 4 visits in 3 years, 4 different hospitals, 4 different injuries. All with convenient excuses." Dominic's face went pale. "And then there's Callista," Blake continued. 8 years old, walked 2.5 miles in the dark to find me because she was terrified you'd killed her mother. She's currently giving a very detailed statement to Detective Ortiz about what she witnessed last night. And the night before, and all the other nights." Dominic went white as a sheet. Blake leaned in close. "Here's the truth, Freeman. You're done. Your career is over. Your freedom is over. And you will never touch Nicole or Callista again, because I'm going to make sure of it." "You don't know who you're dealing with," Dominic snarled. "I have judges, I have connections, I have billions of dollars, and the best legal team on the East Coast." Blake's voice was ice. "You're a prosecutor, I'm a titan. We are not playing in the same league." Dominic lunged across the table. Victor caught him effortlessly, slamming him back into his chair. "Get him out of my hospital," Blake said quietly. "If he comes back, call the police and have him arrested for trespassing." As Victor escorted Dominic out, the prosecutor turned back. "This isn't over, Sutton. I'll get my wife and daughter back, and when I do, I'll destroy you." Blake smiled. "You're welcome to try." Nicole was awake when Blake returned, Callista asleep beside her on the hospital bed. "He was here, wasn't he?" Nicole said quietly. "Dominic." Blake nodded. Victor escorted him out. "He won't be back." "You don't know him, Blake. He always finds a way." Blake pulled a chair close to the bed, sitting so their faces were level. "Nicole, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "I don't know how to trust anymore." "Then don't trust me yet. Just don't fight me on this, please." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "This is Rebecca Thornton, best divorce attorney in the state. She's already reviewed your case. She's ready to file papers today if you want. Nicole's eyes widened. Blake, I can't afford. I can, and I am. This isn't negotiable. He held up a hand when she started to protest. You can pay me back if it makes you feel better. Take 100 years. I don't care. But you're getting divorced, Nicole, today. He'll fight for custody. He has judges, and I have evidence. The medical records. Callista's testimony. The security footage, and something else. Blake pulled out his phone, showing her a photo. This morning, I had my investigation team dig into Dominic's cases. 3 of his convictions in the past 2 years. Witness tampering, planted evidence. We found one of the witnesses he threatened. She's willing to testify. Nicole stared at him. How did you? Because I spent 16 years becoming powerful enough to protect the people I love. And you're at the top of that very short list. He took her hand. I'm not going to let him hurt you anymore, Nicole. I'm not going to let him take Callista. I'm going to end him. Legally, thoroughly, and permanently. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Why are you doing this? Because I love you. It was that simple. I've loved you since I was 15 years old, and love isn't something you turn off just because someone says no. It just waits, and I've been waiting 16 years for a chance to prove to you that I'm worth loving back. Blake, I'm married, I'm broken, I'm perfect. He squeezed her hand. You're perfect, Nicole. You always have been. Dominic tried to break you, but he didn't. You're still here. You're still fighting, and now you don't have to fight alone. Nicole looked at him, really looked at him. At the boy who'd loved her so completely it had terrified her. At the man who'd never stopped. I don't deserve you, she whispered. You deserve everything. Blake's voice was fierce. You deserve safety and peace and someone who looks at you like you hung the moon. Because that's what you are to me, Nicole. You're the moon and the stars and every good thing I've ever wanted in my life. That's the cheesiest thing I've ever heard, Nicole said. But she was smiling through her tears. I'm just getting started. Wait until I start writing you poetry. Oh God, please don't. Blake laughed, and the sound filled the room with something light and hopeful. Too late, I've already written 12 sonnets. They're terrible. You'll hate them. Blake Sutton, billionaire hospital mogul, writes bad poetry? Only for you. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Only ever for you. Callista stirred, her sleepy voice cutting through the moment. Are you going to marry my mama, Dr. Sutton? Blake's eyes never left Nicole's. If she'll have me someday, when she's ready. Callista sat up, looking between them with the wisdom of a child who'd seen too much. Mama, you should say yes. He's nice, and he saved you, and he looks at you like you're very, very beautiful. Nicole laughed, a real laugh, the first one in years. Callista, and you look at him the same way, Callista continued. Like how princesses look at princes in my movies, all soft and happy, Blake grinned. I like this kid. Don't encourage her, Nicole said, but she was smiling. Callista climbed off the bed, walked to Blake, and looked up at him solemnly. You're going to keep your promise, right? You're going to keep Mama safe forever? Blake knelt down to her level. Forever and always, sweetheart, that's a Blake Sutton promise. And I never break those. Callista threw her arms around his neck. Thank you for saving my mama. Blake hugged her back, and over her shoulder, he met Nicole's eyes. In that moment, in that room, something shifted. Something healed. Something began. And for the first time in 16 years, Blake Sutton felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 days later, Detective Rachel Ortiz arrested Dominic Freeman in his office at the DA's building. The charges: attempted murder, domestic violence, witness tampering, and corruption. The witness testimony was devastating. Callista's statement, Nicole's medical records. The security footage, the witnesses Dominic had threatened in his cases. His bail was set at $5 million. Blake paid it anonymously just so Dominic would be released, and immediately served with divorce papers and a restraining order. The custody battle lasted exactly 4 hours. Blake's legal team presented evidence so damning that Dominic's own lawyer recommended he surrender all parental rights. And he did, in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. Dominic Freeman was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Lost his law license. Lost his career. Lost everything. At the sentencing, the judge looked at him with contempt. You were trusted to uphold the law, Mr. Freeman. Instead, you brutalized your wife. terrorized your daughter, and corrupted the very system you swore to serve. You don't deserve mercy. You don't deserve leniency. You deserve every single day of this sentence. Dominic looked back at the gallery, where Nicole sat with Blake's arm around her shoulders, Callista on her lap. He saw the way Blake looked at her, like she was precious, like she was everything. He saw the way Nicole leaned into Blake, like she was finally safe, and he knew he'd lost. Not just his freedom, not just his career. He'd lost the only good thing he'd ever had. And she was never, ever coming back. 6 months later, Nicole stood in the middle of her new apartment, the one Blake bought after she was discharged when she refused to move in with him, saying it was too soon and too obvious after her ordeal. She was wearing jeans and old college sweatshirts. Her bruises had faded months ago. Her broken bones had healed, but the broken parts inside? Those took longer. Blake found her standing by the window, looking out at the city lights. "Hey," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Nicole leaned back into him. "I'm just happy, and it's strange. I forgot what happy felt like." Blake pressed a kiss to her temple. "Get used to it. I plan on keeping you happy for the next 60 years. Nicole turned in his arms, looking up at him. "Blake Sutton, are you proposing?" "Not yet, but I will, when you're ready." "What if I'm ready now?" Blake's breath caught. "Nicole, I'm not saying we get married tomorrow, but I want you to know I'm ready to think about a future with you." She cupped his face. "I spent 16 years making the wrong choices. I married the wrong man. I lived the wrong life. But you're the right choice, Blake. You always were. I was just too scared to see it. And now," his voice was rough with emotion, "now I'm done being scared." Nicole smiled. "Now I'm ready to say yes." Blake kissed her, soft and sweet and full of 16 years of waiting. When they pulled apart, he was smiling. "I'm going to marry you, Nicole Freeman." "I know. I'm going to spend every day proving I'm worthy of that yes. You already have. I'm going to love you until I take my last breath and probably long after that." "That's really cheesy, Blake. I warned you I'd be terrible at this." Nicole laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Blake had ever heard. "You're terrible and perfect and mine." "Yours," Blake agreed. "Forever." Callista appeared in the doorway, grinning. "Are you guys being gross and kissy again?" "Absolutely," Blake said, not taking his eyes off Nicole. "Good. Mama deserves gross and kissy." Callista ran over and hugged them both. "And I get to be the flower girl at the wedding, right?" Nicole looked at Blake, eyebrows raised. Blake shrugged. "I may have already told her we're getting married eventually." "Eventually?" "How about next spring?" Blake said. "Give us time to plan something perfect. Something that's just us." Nicole's eyes filled with happy tears. "Next spring sounds perfect." 18 months after, they got married. The wedding wasn't massive or ostentatious, even though Blake could have afforded to buy out entire hotels. It was small, intimate, perfect, held in the gardens of Sutton Medical Center, the place where everything had changed. The place where Callista had run screaming for help. The place where Blake had promised to save Nicole's life. 200 guests, mostly hospital staff, a few close friends, and Callista's entire third-grade class because she'd insisted. Nicole walked down the aisle in a simple white dress that made Blake's breath stop in his throat. No father to give her away. She walked alone, head high, because she'd saved herself. Blake had just been there to catch her when she fell. But halfway down the aisle, Callista ran up and grabbed her mother's hand. "I'll walk with you, Mama," she said loudly. Nicole looked down at her daughter, this brave, brilliant girl who'd saved both their lives, and nodded through tears. They walked together. When they reached Blake, he was crying openly, not caring who saw. "Hi," Nicole said softly. "Hi," Blake managed. "You're beautiful. You're crying. I've been waiting 18 years for this moment. I'm allowed to cry." The officiant cleared his throat. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Blake Sutton and Nicole Freeman. A union that proves love doesn't give up. That proves second chances are real. That proves—" "Can I say something?" Blake interrupted. The officiant blinked. Usually the vows come later." "I know, but I need to say this now." Blake turned to Nicole, taking both her hands. 18 years ago, I told you I loved you. You said no, and I spent the next 16 years becoming someone worthy of you saying yes. I built an empire, made billions, saved thousands of lives, but none of it mattered, because the only life I really wanted to save was yours. Nicole was crying now, mascara running, not caring. You walked back into my life, broken and scared, and I got to be the man who caught you, Blake continued, his voice shaking. I got to be the man who promised your daughter I'd keep you safe. I got to be the man who fought for you when you couldn't fight for yourself. And now? He smiled through his tears. Now I get to be your husband, the man who wakes up next to you every morning, the man who grows old with you, the man who loves you for the rest of his life and beyond. Blake, Nicole's voice broke. I'm not done. Blake squeezed her hands. Thank you for saying no 18 years ago. Because it made me become the man I needed to be, the man strong enough to protect you, rich enough to fight for you, stubborn enough to never give up on you, and patient enough to wait for you to be ready. Nicole laughed through her sobs. Are you done now? Almost. One more thing. Blake looked at Callista. Can I have the rings? Callista, in her flower girl dress, pulled out 2 ring boxes. But she didn't hand them to Blake immediately. Instead, she looked at her mother. Mama, I have something to say too. Nicole knelt down. What is it, baby? Callista's voice was clear and strong. Thank you for staying alive and for being brave enough to leave. Thank you for teaching me to be strong. She looked at Blake. And thank you, Dr. Sutton, for keeping your promise. You saved Mama. You saved me, and now you're going to be my dad. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Blake knelt beside Nicole, and Callista hugged them both. I love you both so much, Blake whispered. We love you too, Nicole said. Callista handed over the rings and ran back to her spot, grinning. The officiant, wiping his own eyes, continued. Well, I think we can skip the part where I talk about love, because these 3 just said it better than I ever could. Blake, your vows? Blake slipped the ring on Nicole's finger, his hands steady now. Nicole Freeman, soon to be Nicole Sutton, I vow to love you every single day. In the big moments and the small ones, when you're happy and when you're healing, when you're strong and when you need someone to be strong for you, I vow to be your safe place, your partner, your best friend, and your biggest fan. I vow to be the man you deserve. Today and every day after. Nicole took Blake's ring, her hands trembling. Blake Sutton, I spent 18 years making mistakes. But standing here with you, this is the first thing I've gotten absolutely right. I vow to love you with everything I have, to choose you every single day, to build a life with you that's full of joy and laughter and really cheesy romantic gestures that make Callista roll her eyes. Blake laughed. I vow to be brave enough to accept this love, Nicole continued, her voice breaking. Because you taught me that I deserve it, that I'm worthy of it, that love isn't supposed to hurt, it's supposed to heal. And you, Blake Sutton, have healed me in ways I didn't know were possible. So I vow to spend the rest of my life being worthy of your love. And loving you right back. The officiant was openly crying now. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Blake, kiss your bride before I lose it completely. Blake cupped Nicole's face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, finally. Finally, Blake agreed. And he kissed her, soft and deep and full of 18 years of waiting, 16 years of longing, and a lifetime of promises kept. The garden erupted in applause. Callista ran up and jumped into their arms, and they held her between them, the 3 of them together. A family forged in fire and fear, and finally love. And in that moment, in that garden built from ashes and trauma and the kind of love that refuses to die, the Sutton family stood together. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love can heal even the deepest wounds, if it showed you that promises matter and second chances are real, please don't just scroll past. Let me know where you're watching from, and share this story with someone who needs to believe in happy endings. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they're worth fighting for. Because somewhere out there, there's a Nicole who needs to know she can leave. There's a Callista who needs to know she can be brave. There's a Blake who's waiting to keep a promise. And there's you, reading this, maybe crying, maybe hoping, and you need to know your happy ending is out there. Your person is out there. Don't give up. Don't stop believing. Don't let the monsters win. Because love, Real, patient, powerful love always finds a way home.